Hey friends, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. If you have been following this series, we've been diving into the connection between self-worth, productivity, and our health, and we are on episode 4, part 4 of the series. And today we're going to go even deeper because I want to go into a topic of one of the biggest missing links I feel in the healing equation, and that's the nervous system. And I've talked about the nervous system plenty of times on the show before, but I really want to tie it into this conversation around this series about worth and productivity and tying productivity to worth and your achievements, your accomplishments, and tie the nervous system dysregulation piece into that. Your nervous system, as you probably know, if you're listening or watching this, you know by now that it's the control center. It's like the control panel of your entire body. So it determines whether you feel safe, whether you feel energized, whether you feel calm or stressed or overwhelmed, or if you feel stuck in survival mode, which is the majority of the population, let's be honest. So if you've ever felt like no matter what you do, whether it's changing your diet, you try new supplements, you try new sleep regimen, that no matter what you do, you still have this underlying kind of anxiety bubbling under the surface, or this just exhaustion that won't go away, or feel like your body is just constantly pushing, like you're having to force yourself through, right? There's a reason for that. And it really has nothing to do with the willpower or the discipline to do the diet or the exercise or the meditations, right? It's not about trying hard enough. In fact, that is probably the reason that you are in the situation you're in, is from trying too hard, right? Let's just be honest. So by the end of this episode, I want you to really understand about the key parts about your nervous system, why your nervous system holds the key to your healing journey, the real reason why your symptoms aren't improving, may not be improving, even when you feel like you're doing, quote, all the things, you're doing all the right things. And then I want to provide you with, like I have in the past few episodes, a little practice, a little nervous system reset practice that you can do today, like right now, while you're listening to this, or you can do it later, to get you out of fight or flight mode. And it's simple, somatic work is really all it is. And before I jump into the episode, I want to give you a little something. And I'm going to mention this one more time in this episode. I'll mention again episode 5. But you are going to want to be listening for the magic word, because you're going to you're going to need this magic word to get an extra special bonus that I'm going to talk about at the end of this episode. And I'll talk about it in our last episode, part 5. But the magic word, I want you to turn your listening ears on and perk your ears up. The magic word is expand. And I will mention that one more time at the end. The magic word is expand. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. So I want to first start talking about the role of your nervous system in your health. So your nervous system has 2 primary states, right? And this might be a review for you, and you might already know this, but it's never a bad idea to learn something again, to hear something again. So there's the sympathetic, and then there's the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is your fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? This is the stress response where your body prioritizes survival over healing. That's what it does. Fight, flight, or freeze. It is now going to push all other functionality in the body down, and it's going to prioritize keeping you alive to either freeze, fight, or flee the situation. Parasympathetic is the opposite of that. This is your rest and digest and heal mode. The healing happens when you are in the parasympathetic state. This is when your body repairs, when it's able to absorb nutrients, when it feels safe, when it's prioritizing digestion and reproduction and all the immunity, all the other parts of the body. When you are in chronic stress, whether it's from work, relationships, the environment you're in, trauma, or even stuck in these deep subconscious beliefs, which, yes, this keeps you in stress. Believe it or not, your subconscious beliefs keep you in this chronic state of stress. Your nervous system gets stuck in survival mode. So that means that your body is constantly preparing for a, quote, threat, right? It's focusing on a threat, potential threat. It's looking for like doom and gloom that's coming next instead of focusing on healing. It is physiologically impossible for your body to heal when it is in fight, flight, or freeze. When you are in the sympathetic state, physiologically, it's impossible. You will not heal when you're in that state. We have to get ourselves into the parasympathetic state in order for your body to heal. And this is why the nervous system piece is so crucial to the work that I do with my clients. And the to me, the subconscious piece that we've talked about already in this series, and I've talked about it plenty of times on the show, the subconscious piece, those underlying beliefs, subconscious beliefs and thoughts about yourself and your situation, life, just in general, all of these pieces are what keeps us stuck and what keeps us in this constant loop of looking for the next thing that's going to fix us. I go to the next practitioner. I try the next supplement protocol. I go to the next detox. I do the next meditation practice, right? Meditation and all the mindfulness practices are great, but it's still not getting to the root cause of why your nervous system is dysregulated. It can help you regulate. But in my experience, and I say this from personal experience, from my own body, and then working with dozens and dozens of women, these mindfulness practices can help can sometimes still be a band-aid, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes they can still be a band-aid because it's still not getting to the root cause, right? It's those subconscious beliefs under the surface that emotional, whether it's emotional trauma, that those stored emotions in the body, that's still causing the dysregulation. So we still, yes, we want to incorporate all the nervous system dysregulation pieces, which we're going to talk about today, but we still want to get to those subconscious beliefs. So how does fight or flight, or fight, flight, or freeze affect your physical health? If your nervous system is perceiving a constant threat, if it's perceiving constant stress, your body's going to react by burning through minerals. Magnesium, potassium, sodium, those are going to be the first to go. This can lead to fatigue, brain fog, digestive issues, bloating, right? That's just first and foremost. Second, it's going to lead to cortisol imbalances, right? Your stress hormone, cortisol, overproduction of cortisol. This can lead to weight gain, to anxiety, to hormonal imbalances. Not only that, but when we get into that state for too long, I've talked about that bell curve before, your body's going to produce a lot of cortisol. And at some point, it's your adrenals are going to get so tired of producing cortisol, it's going to come down on this other side of the slope. And now it's going to stop producing cortisol. Now you're deficient and dysregulated in a totally different way, right? So cortisol dysregulation just all the way around. It's also going to suppress, like I mentioned, if your body is in that fight, flight, or freeze, it's prioritizing that, like your heart beating and your lungs pumping air and your brain functioning, like the reptilian part of your brain where it just needs to survive. That's the only thing it's prioritizing. It's going to suppress digestion, detoxification, just basic hormonal function. So this is going to lead to things like bloating, food sensitivities, sluggish detox pathways. So now we're recirculating toxins and hormones in the body because detoxification it's not a priority anymore. So studies show, and I will say this, y'all, that did some research for this episode. So I'm about to come at you with some facts. So let me start here. Studies are showing that chronic stress can actually shrink your hippocampus. This is your brain center for memory and emotional regulation. It literally shrinks that part of your brain, making it harder to recover from stress and making it harder for you to be able to regulate your emotions. And this is why when we're in times of stress, we deal with things like memory issues and brain fog and short-term memory, and we can blame it on ADHD, or we blame it on ADD, or we blame it on, oh, I'm just getting older, or we blame it on, oh, my hormones are. It's chronic stress. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Nervous system dysregulation has also been linked to gut disorders, of course, like IBS. I can tell you, raising my hand here, IBS, leaky gut, and really directly impacts that gut brain axis. So much is affected when your gut brain axis is affected, right? It's that vagus nerve. The vagus nerve connects it is basically your gut brain axis, gut brain, however you want to say it, axis. And when we're dysregulated, our vagus nerve, right? There's a lot that's happening when our vagus nerve is out of whack, right? So another study found that women with high cortisol levels were significantly more likely to experience hormonal imbalances, fatigue, menstrual irregularities, right? So cortisol is affecting all of that. And the other thing about your adrenals, I'm going to talk about your adrenals multiple times in this episode. And I know I've talked about them all the time, but I have a theory. And my theory is that there are so many women out there who struggle with perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause because we go into this stage of hormonal life existence with our adrenals a total wreck. Because here's the thing, reminder, if you didn't know this, I'm about to teach you something. If you already know it, you're getting a reminder. Your cortisol, your adrenals are responsible for progesterone, right? Part of your progesterone production. As you go into perimenopause and menopause, your ovaries stop producing estrogen. Your adrenals have to take up the slack. That means now we're relying on our adrenals to A, get us through our normal stress response with cortisol and adrenaline. That's a normal stress response. B, we're expecting it to help us with our progesterone production. And now we're also asking it, our adrenals, to help with estrogen production. What little estrogen we now can produce is going to be made with our adrenals. If you're going into that era of your life where your adrenals are like shriveled up to pieces and they're not functioning, what do you think is going to happen? Right? We're going to be struggling through perimenopause and menopause. So that's my theory. Let's take care of our adrenals is the bottom line, the lesson from that. So the the moral of the story with this piece, just bringing it home here, true healing doesn't happen until we are in that rest and digest state. It can't, again, it's physiologically impossible. It cannot happen when you're stressed. It cannot happen when you're in that stress response. Your body needs safety. Your body has to feel it. It's required. It needs safety to heal. And the safety starts with your nervous system. So, what are some signs? And I think there are some signs that we know of, but then there's some signs that we aren't really attributing to nervous system dysregulation. A lot of us are just walking around like a dysregulated mess every day. We don't even realize it. So if you're constantly feeling on edge, constantly feeling irritable on edge, like I mentioned before, it's kind of this like underlying anxiety feeling where it may not be like clinical anxiety, like having an anxiety attack. Why, of course, that can be a sign of dysregulation. That's an obvious sign, right? But the less obvious sign is kind of this over like again, you're just kind of waiting for that impending doom. Your impending doom meter is like, meh, 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 like it's just waiting for it for no reason, right? There, we don't sense any impending, like there's nothing that we know is coming, but we're waiting for it. So you're constantly feeling on edge, constantly feeling anxious for that. Waking up exhausted, even after you got a full night's sleep, and you might have even had a good night's sleep. Felt like, oh, I slept all night, but you wake up and you're not rested. Struggling with bloating, struggling with food sensitivity, struggling with digestive issues that won't go away. We we're like, oh, we have a gut problem. Well, yeah, you have a gut problem because you have a nervous system problem, right? We need to address that. Feeling like you can't slow down without the guilt. This is a big one. We're going to dive into this here in just a second. And then dealing with things like hormonal swings, like mood swings, hormonal swings, irregular cycles, burnout, maybe you miss your cycle altogether. All of these can be signs. So the polyvagal theory, and I feel like I've talked about this on the show a couple times, but I talk about this in a lot of my programs just because I want my clients to understand this. But the polyvagal theory explains that our nervous system is constantly scanning for threats even when none exist, right? We're just constantly looking for it. And it keeps us in this hypervigilant state. And that's what I was saying, that an impending doom meter is going off. It's like on all the time. And it's looking, you're just hypervigilant all the time. And you know what I'm talking about? You know that hypervigilant state where you're just on, you have to be on and you're on edge all the time. It's exhausting. It is such an energetic drain. Chronic stress has been shown to suppress immune function, increase your risk of infections, illness, chronic disease, autoimmune conditions, overall inflammation. All of this is happening from being in this hypervigilant state. So, I want to tell you, I want to bring in a little story first before I go on to this next piece. So, I had a client last year, and she was my dear dysregulated client. So I'm going to call her my dear dysregulated client. And she came to me after years of struggling with a lot of things. I mean, it was a pretty extensive list. And her energy was the biggest thing. I mean, she could barely get out of bed. She didn't have the energy to read a book. That was one of the things. She's like, I just want to be able to sit down and read a book and not be too exhausted to focus on reading the book. She had to quit her job because she didn't have the energy to do anything. Just severe chronic fatigue, and she couldn't digest like anything. Like she really was down to like count on one hand the number of foods that she could eat without reacting to something. And she had tried things. She'd been to doctors, she was going to see a therapist, she had tried things. She'd tried holistic things and supplements and she'd tried so many things, and nothing had worked for her. And we ran the labs, of course. And of course, it was the typical things, mineral imbalances out the wazoo, digestive issues for sure, hormonal thing. I mean, it was all the typical things. And so the first thing that we had to do was, okay, we need to get you out of this survival mode. Like the stress response was so intense in her body that she couldn't get out of it. So the diet piece was the first piece, because that's the other thing about the being in the stress response and being in that kind of survival mode. If we're eating specific things that are kind of perpetuating that stress response, it's going to keep you in that survival mode. So an anti-inflammatory diet is always my go-to. So we're taking out anything that could be potentially inflammatory in the moment, right? And it's not forever, it's for right now. So we can slow down the stress response and take out any potential variable that could be causing, perpetuating the stress response in the body. So first, we're looking at anti-inflammatory diet. She basically couldn't digest. I think there was like one protein she could eat, and all the protein just she couldn't digest it. So we had to really work with that. Let's get creative with how we can get specific plant-based proteins, but then specific ones that aren't going to exacerbate bloating that she's already feeling. It was very complex. The biggest thing that happened was when we really started to hone in on of course, I'm going to say her human design, understanding her human design, and understanding why her nervous system was in such a tangle. So the nervous system dysregulation piece and the human design piece go hand in hand, because when you understand your energetic blueprint, you have a better idea of how you can regulate yourself in the most efficient way, because everyone is different. Everybody's energy is different. And it also kind of depends on kind of where you are in the dysregulated scale. Like in the polyvagal theory, it teaches you about a ladder. And it's, where on the ladder are you, and where on the ladder do you need to move? Are you hyper fight or flight state? Are you in freeze where you're dysfunctional freeze where you can't do it? And that's kind of where she was. She was in this free state where she couldn't do anything, right? She couldn't work. She couldn't read a book. She couldn't walk her dog around the neighborhood. So how do you get yourself out of this freeze? So, and this is where we were working from. So, understanding your human design is going to be a crucial piece to this, because like I said, everyone's energy is unique. Everyone's energy is different. So, understanding how your energy is flowing through the body, understanding your energy centers, your defined versus undefined energy centers, to know where the patterns of this freeze could be happening, right? Is it the root center, right? There was a lot of root center stuff that we worked through. There was a lot of throat center stuff that we worked with. So there was a lot of energy here that needed to be moved, that we needed to work through. So that was the biggest thing. And so by understanding these pieces, really working through a lot of this, there was a lot of somatic work that we did, some subconscious work. There was like journaling prompts and meditations and all the things, but it was all to help rewire this. And in the goal of all of this was to bring safety back to the body. And that's what I kept telling her. All of these things, it's going to be a little bit of time. And it was a slow trot at first. And I know she probably felt really discouraged by the lack of progress at the beginning. But it was kind of one of those things where you never know when it's going to start to compound. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, everything clicks. And that's really what happened with her. And all of a sudden it was it was just like a light went off in her body, or went on, I guess, in her body. And all of a sudden she was eating things she couldn't eat before. And she had this energy. I can walk my dog around the whole neighborhood. I can have energy to read a book. She ended up going back to school and becoming a massage therapist, and going, like, there was so many things that happened. Now she has her own business. Like, I mean, it was just this compound effect. And after this, from I felt like, I know it wasn't for her, and it probably didn't feel like this for her, but I felt like it was from one day to the next. It was just from consistently sticking with the practices we were doing, consistently sticking with the process, and that's what happened. So the moral of this story, your nervous system really does hold the key to your healing. And so we have to get the body out of that survival mode, out of that fight or fight, flight or freeze, and get it into safety. Because there's no supplement, there's no amount of supplements or dietary changes that are going to take you out of survival mode. It can help. I'm not saying it can't help. It can help, but it's not going to fix it. It will not fix it. So I want to shift gears a little bit here. And I know so far we've talked about how nervous system dysregulation keeps you stuck in survival mode, and how this can show up as chronic exhaustion, anxiety, physical symptoms on the body. But I want to talk about why so many women are operating in this survival state to begin with. Like, why is it affecting women so much? Because the truth is, and that's why I wanted to bring this topic in this series, most of the time, it all comes back to worthiness, productivity, and how we've been conditioned to measure our value. And there's science behind this. I told you, I got receipts. I got receipts, y'all. I'm coming with some science for y'all here because I think this is something that we're not talking about. I don't know anybody that's talking about this, about how this measuring our worth based on our productivity, right? How this is contributing to our nervous system dysregulation. So we all know that feeling like we have to prove ourselves. We've all been there. Maybe you're stuck in there right now. And that the more we accomplish, the more valuable we are. But what we often don't realize is how deeply this belief is wired in our nervous system and even our brain structure, the structure of our brain. The research tells us how worthiness and productivity actually affects our bodies, and I'm gonna share some with you now. I have some to share with you. So first, the impact on the structure of your brain. I mentioned that a second ago, the actual structure of your brain. Research shows that people with low self-esteem actually have less gray matter in key areas of the brain that regulate stress and emotions. I thought that's a mind-blowing statistic in my opinion. Studies also show that the anterior cingulate cortex, I hope I'm saying that right, which is an area of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and self-perception. These are the important things for our personal growth, is significantly smaller in people who struggle with self-worth. This means that their brain literally has a harder time regulating stress and emotional responses, all because they struggle with self-worth. I want you to think about this for a second because I think we all have somebody in our life, and it might be you, and it also could be something that you're not consciously aware of, but I want you to think of somebody in your life. I can just think of somebody right off the bat, maybe more than one person, that this is them. You're wondering, like, God, can you, how, like, they're always on edge. They're always like so high strung. They're emotional about everything and like not in a good way. You know what I mean? They're emotionally driven. They thrive on the emotions. They thrive on the drama. They thrive on like the highs and the lows. And then if you think about them as a person, if you know them as a person, what is their perception of self-worth? Think about it for a second. And think about you if you've ever been there and having that you're in a period where again you had a hard time regulating your stress. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in this chronically. It could just be a period of your life, right? Where you were dealing with self-worth issues, emotional responses. It's to me it's blatant. Like it's very obvious this is evident in how women are, right? And the fact that it affects the gray matter in the brain and that part of the brain for emotional regulation and self-perception is wild. I have more data for you. I have more studies for you. Okay, I want to talk about chronic stress and neural circuitry. Okay. So research also shows that when we're constantly trying to prove our worth, pushing through exhaustion, forcing productivity, never feeling like we've done, quote, enough, our brain's neural circuits actually shift. So the amygdala, this is the part of your brain that's the fight or flight response. Your amygdala, it's like that reptilian part of your brain, right? This becomes overactive while the prefrontal cortex, this is where we make rational, grounded decisions, becomes underactive. So you're literally turning on the part of your brain when we're constantly trying to prove our worth. You're turning on the part of your brain that's responsible for that fight or flight response, and you're turning off the part of your brain where rational, grounded decisions are made, right? It's now underactive. So if you've ever felt like you're stuck in a loop of overworking, anxiety, unable to slow down, even when you know you want to, and your body's probably telling you that you need to, this is why. Your brain has literally been rewired to be in survival mode. It's been completely rewired. Okay, I think I have one more. Autonomic nervous system imbalance. Okay, so we're not just talking about your brain here. This pattern that we're talking about shows up in your entire nervous system. Studies have found that people who experience chronic work-related stress have imbalances in their autonomic nervous system, the part of your brain or the part of your body, not your brain, the part of your body that controls involuntary functions like heart rate, digestion, and hormonal regulation. Okay. So, long-term stress from constantly trying to prove your worth is directly linked to higher cortisol levels, increased inflammation, even heart issues, cardiovascular issues. So when I say that healing your nervous system isn't just about reducing stress, it's about rewiring your entire system. This is what I mean, which is why I say you can do all the meditations till the cows come home, but if you haven't rewired it, it's going to come back. And yes, I'm not saying it can't help. It totally can help. But it is not about, it's not a mindfulness issue, it's a rewiring issue that has to happen. It's a rewiring that has to happen. So it's more than just learning to slow down or practice self-care. And that's the advice out there sometimes is so patronizing. I don't know if that's the word I want to use. And also, I also feel like it's sometimes just oversimplifies what's actually going on. Because and that's I know there's doctors out there who have given some of my clients that where they're like, "Oh, just slow down." Like, "Oh, you're stressed. Well, don't be." Like, what kind of advice is that? It's terrible advice. Okay, if it was that easy, we'd all be winning at life. So, it's not just about learning to slow down or practicing self-care. That's Yes, those are important. We want to slow down. We want to practice self-care, but we have to recognize where the conditioning is happening, that our culture has literally conditioned us to tie our productivity to our worth. And this is what's running the program. This is what's running the subconscious mind in the background. And as long as your nervous system is operating on that program, it's also going to be operating in survival mode. This is at a subconscious level. It does not feel safe to rest. It doesn't feel safe to, it's a rewiring that has to happen. And it's why so many women feel guilty when they slow down. Why you might feel restless and anxious if you're not working or doing, quote, doing something, right? Even with you take breaks, you don't feel rested or you're thinking about what you have to do next. Okay. So it's just as, no, I don't want to say that. I'm going to say just as easy. I want to say this. Just like these patterns can be done and be learned and be conditioned, they can be unlearned. I'm not saying it's going to be easy because it's not. Typically, it can be, but this is going to take some time to rewire. And it's just like I tell my clients when, it's 2 months into their protocol and they feel like literally nothing has happened in the body. And I have to remind them, how old are you? How old are you? Right? 40, 50, 60, however old they are. Okay, how long has it taken your body to get in the position that you're in right now? I mean, at least a good 15, 20 years at least, right? You expect it to just be fixed in 3 months? No, we don't. We have to be realistic about it. So it's the same with the rewiring. And keep this in mind, because the other thing is with a lot of these things that are wired in our bodies and in our brains, has been generationally implanted in us. So it is generations that have to be undone. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take generations to undo because you have the power to undo the generational programming that is in your DNA, 100%. You can teach your body new things. You can teach your body that you're worthy outside of what you do or you produce or achieve, and you can shift it. So we've talked about so far how what's happening in the body, and I want to talk about shifting it and kind of this reset. So I want to offer you a little practice as we wrap up here, just a little reset that you can do. And this is this to signal safety. So this is your safety signal exercise. And I have one other little option that I want to offer you. So I'm going to guide you through this little practice for you to start using, and you can use it today to begin to shift into this feeling of safety in the body and to shift in that state of safety and healing in the body. So, as I always say, if you're listening to this, if you're driving or walking, then you can do this later by finding a comfortable place to sit and then taking a deep breath in through your nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts and then exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 counts. So making that out breath a little bit longer than the in breath. And as you exhale, you're placing one hand on your belly, the other hand on your heart, and you're saying your mantra here: I am safe. I am supported. My body knows how to heal. Right? And continue this. So you're breathing in for 4, holding for 4, exhaling through your mouth for 6. I am safe. I am supported. My body knows how to heal. Now, see if you can do this 3 full times, allowing your body to fully relax. The breathing itself. Now, again, as I mentioned it was either part two or part three of this. You can do all of these somatic exercises and these breathwork exercises and just be like, oh, I did it, it didn't work. Or you can be really intentional about it, right? And you can really be purposeful about it. The deep breathing in and of itself activates your vagus nerve to shift you out or shift you into that parasympathetic state. So the deep breathing itself, there's science behind this, right? And there are tons of studies about breath work and different modalities and different patterns of breath work. But studies are showing that breath work improves heart rate variability, which is a key marker of nervous system resilience. Heart rate variability, and there's ways you can measure that too. And if you have like an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring, a lot of times it measures that, but this is a key marker of resilience in your nervous system, and breath work helps that. So just the breath work part alone can get you into that parasympathetic state. But when we add this mindfulness component and we add this like this mantra that I just gave you, I am safe, I'm supported, my body knows how to heal, and we add those things to it, this puts the breath work on kind of this other energetic level because now we're listening to the words, we're visualizing the words. Your energy goes where your thoughts and energy go together, right? Your thoughts and your energy go together. So if we're filling our minds in this mindfulness state with these positive thoughts, that's where your energy is going to go. The other practice I want to offer to you, and I have this in a couple of my programs. You might have done this with me if you did. I did a challenge. It was a few years ago, but it was this kind of mindfulness challenge. And one of the practices is called coming home. And you go into breath, but you're giving yourself a hug, or you're putting your hands across your chest, or you're putting your hands on your heart. You're putting them on your body to feel at home in your body, and then going into the breath. And you can rock with it, you can move with it, but it is just about feeling that safety, coming home. And I love that. I love the name of that. Like I love calling it the coming home practice because that's the goal. That's what I want you to feel. And that's what you should feel in doing this is having your hands on your body, whether it's your heart, or you're giving yourself a hug, you're wrapped around your chest or whatever, feeling at home in your body and cultivating that safety. And that's what it's all about. It's cultivating that safety in the body. And that's what allows us to get into that state to heal. And it allows us also to get into that state to rewire what is there, right? Because that's the other piece, right? And this is a conversation, a deeper conversation for another day, and maybe for something an offer that's coming down the road with me. But that deep rewiring, that subconscious work, that's the other thing that has to happen in order for you to really get untangled from this productivity, my worth equals my productivity or my output, right? There's a rewiring that has to happen. But before we do the rewiring, we have to do the nervous system work. And that's really the benefit of hypnosis. When I do hypnosis with clients, or you've ever done a group hypnosis session with me, getting into that hypnotic state, that's the safety. That's you getting into that state of safety so that when I'm offering these subconscious suggestions, it can go into your subconscious because your body feels safe to take that in. And that's how hypnosis works. So, key takeaway for you. So here wrap up. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for threats in the body, and we have to get it in a state of safety in order for you to heal. And now, y'all, this episode was a deep one. I get it. And I'd love to know how it landed for you. And I have a couple things to offer. So let's do this. First, if this episode resonated with you, I want you to DM me the word. I want you to DM me on Instagram, actually, before I say that. And I want to hear from you. What part hit home the most? Are there any patterns that you recognize in yourself that you're ready to shift? And for those who are listening closely, take notes. I have a special bonus waiting for you. So first, if you heard the magic word at the beginning, I'm going to say it again. I want you to listen for the magic word and DM me the magic word to let me know that you found it. The magic word, remember, is expand. Now, when you drop me the magic word and you decide to book your energy reboot sessions, you're going to get a bonus of the energy expansion toolkit just for listening to this podcast and for paying attention and doing the work. So when you book your energy reboot session, you're going to unlock the energy expansion toolkit. It's going to include a guided nervous system recalibration audio to help you shift into ease and flow out of fight or flight. You're going to get a personalized energy mapping assessment to see where burnout is showing up in your body. Give you some some tools to use, some tips based on some areas of your human design. And then you're going to get 7 days of private telegram support with me after your session where we'll integrate everything deeper. So basically, you're getting all of this private work with me for free just because you listen to this podcast. So if you drop the word expand and you decide to jump in the energy reboot session, I have 2 options for that. You can check your email or just send me a message. You can just text me reset on, or not text me, DM me or email me reset, and I can give you the options. But you're going to need to know that magic word to get this little free bonus, which I'm really excited about. And I think it's fun. No, something else I want to mention. I'm creating something special for the women who are ready to take this work even deeper after I finish the series outside of those energy reset reboot sessions. So if you DM me your biggest takeaway from this episode, or any of the episodes, your biggest takeaway so far, I'm going to send you a sneak peek of what's coming and a surprise bonus when I launch. So there's 2 opportunities for you to get bonuses that I'm really excited about. This is so fun. So first, again, the magic word is expand. And when you use the magic word, you'll get that energy expansion toolkit with your energy reset sessions or sessions, whichever you choose. You'll get that bonus. And then if you DM me your biggest takeaway so far from this episode or any of them, you're going to get a surprise bonus when I launch what's coming next after this. So I cannot wait to hear from you, and I cannot wait for you to step into whatever is lying on the other side of this for you. And I'll see you in the next and last episode.